This is the Allegheny Northern in N scale. We are coming up on the week of Christmas, and as I was in my train room working through some little projects, I realized that everything that I wanted to get done before guests arrive for Christmas was not going to happen. There's so many things on the list to get done. It's almost impossible to get everything done, and I guess that's really the point of a hobby, is it's never quite done. So I thought what I would do is a little bit called a Christmas special, I guess, and that is explaining some high points of things you definitely want to get done before all your friends and family arrive for the Christmas celebration. So before we get into the video, I want to wish everyone out there in YouTube land a very Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and let's get started about some things that you probably should have done before folks arrive for Christmas. First thing is first is to prioritize your projects. So if you're like me, your layout in various locations goes from scenic and near finish to a plaster wasteland with half scratch built models, mock-ups, and unfinished scenery. Now, it's obviously unrealistic that I'm going to get this terminal built in any sense beyond where it is now. So what I did was, knowing that my project is not going to be complete in time for guests to see the railroad, I simply took the parts that were complete, replaced the mock-up pieces that they correspond to, and this is about as far as it's going to go. So if someone says, hey, what are you doing here? I can explain what I'm doing and walk them through it, maybe help them visualize it a little bit better. But by and large, it did two things. One, it cleared it off my workbench, and two, it gives you something a little more interesting than foam core to look at. So make a priority list of things you're going to get done, not get done, what you can put in the layout, put in the layout, what you can't put in the layout. It's going to have to wait for next open house. Then you're going to want to take your trains, if they're not somewhere on the track, get them off the layout. You don't want to have an overcrowded layout with cars and rolling stock all over the place. So do general maintenance on that. And while you're doing your general maintenance, take a vacuum, whether it's a shop vac, home vac, ask the wife first, or a model vac, and clean up any loose material that may foul your tracks. This will come in handy later when we're talking about operation. Plus, it's just good to keep it away from your locomotives, which are very good at sucking in dust and dirt from the layout, scenery, material, and it's not good for them. So make sure your layout is clean, make sure it is tidy, make sure all the little parts and pieces are glued down, and if you have any kind of guards, plastic or plexiglass of any sort that you use to keep interested hands away from the layout, make sure those are all in place. Next thing you want to do, and they're the stars of your show, your locomotives. You want to make sure your locomotives are in top working order. The best way to do that is to make sure that they are properly cleaned, oiled, and of course programmed. So what I mean by that is, one, take your locomotive and flip it over. If your gears on the trucks are bone dry, you need to take a good hard look at that, see when the last time was you oiled and performed any maintenance on it. So it's a very easy process to do, and I can show you right here. If you take your locomotive and you roll it over, it's real hard to see in this camera, especially with the lighting, but you can see that your gears are exposed underneath. Take a look at them. They should have a very thin coat. They should be shiny almost with oil. If they are, you're in good shape. If they're not, you need to hit them with some oil. For my models, this is what I use. There's multiple manufacturers out there, multiple options. This is specially designed for the locomotives. So this is something like what you're going to want to use, a hobby. Oil. Also, they make a grease. This is a little bit heavier duty. I use it inside the locomotive, so if you're doing a full overhaul of your locomotive, take your shell off. Now, I'm not going to show you how to do that. You should all know how to do that at this point. If you don't, feel free to leave me comments and I can help you out. But take your shell off, get to the underside of your locomotive, and grease the bearings and all the moving parts along the locomotive. It'll help keep it quiet, reduce wear and tear just like on your car, and it'll also ensure that they run perfect. Now, you got to do what I'm doing, and that is take your trains out on the track and make sure that they are running just fine. So right now I've got 3 trains running on the track, which is the max that my layout can hold at one time, and quite frankly about the limit of how many I can keep track of. These locomotives all been oiled, and so right now they are making their way around the layout, freshly oiled and ready to go. So we're just trying to get everything coated here. Recommendation is 15 minutes forward, 15 minutes back on half speed when you're breaking in a new locomotive. You should do something similar when you're re-oiling them. Just helps get all the gears coated. So I'm running a little bit slower than that right now just because I don't want to lose track of 3 trains. But that's what you should be doing as far as your locomotives are concerned. Sorry, the washing machine just went into a drain cycle, so that water you hear is the washing machine. On your locomotive to-do list should be to clean the wheels. I use the components from the Tidy Track from Woodland Scenics. Basically all you do is you set this on the track. It's got metal contact points underneath that will pick up your power and digital signal from the layout, and then you just place the locomotive on here and you let it roll back and forth. I hold mine in place. Careful not to damage any of the details. And as you can see, it takes the dirt right off the wheels, which is what you want. So I don't use any kind of cleaner, any kind of solution on it. That's just from the locomotive wheels running on the pads. Okay, where I do use a solution for cleaning is the tracks, and I know that almost all of you out there in your arsenal of track cleaning equipment probably own one of these. Okay, now I want to tell you right now, these are terrible for your layout. You should not use them, and I say that as you can see that mine is heavily used. The reason being is it's an abrasive item, so if you take it and you're grinding away on your track, you're actually damaging the surface of your rails. Now, the damage is micro, but it is still damaging. So why do I have this here? Well, I've just painted these rails using the Woodland Scenics paint pens. And there's some paint on the top that I need to get off. So it's a little bit heavier debris than standard cleaning. So when I am doing my standard cleaning, I use an electronics grade lubricant and cleaner. Using this, make sure it is plastic safe, definitely, and improves electrical properties. That's the key thing here. Because what that does is it takes all of the dirt off of the rails. Not only that, but it also fills in all those little micro holes, makes the rails kind of smooth almost, and will make your electrical contact better by the properties of the cleaner. Now, why that's important. One, you can operate your trains at very slow, realistic speeds without them losing connection to the digital signal and to the power, which is fantastic. But for the same reason that it's good, it's also bad, and that is that it is a lubricant. So if you've got a steep grade, much like my mixed freight is climbing now at 2%, too much of this solution will actually cause your trains to experience the worst wheel slip ever. So how do I handle that? Once again, I go to Woodland Scenics and the Tidy Track system, and I use 2 cleaning pads. You can tell that I've just cleaned the layout. This is actually a pad that was fresh. I cleaned every piece of track on the layout, and that's the end result. And what I did was put a very small amount of that cleaner on the very tip of the first rough pad. And then I took that and ran it over the entire layout, using the white pad to clean up the gunk and dirt that was on the rails, and the rough pad there to loosen it all up. It does take a little bit of time to go through all the switches and ins and outs of the layout, but it is well worth it. I probably do that once, maybe twice a year, and that is it. So this is a very good product. There are similar out there, and they can all be purchased on either Amazon or from your local home improvement store. If your layout is anything like mine, then it is designed for train watching, to watch long coal drags, long intermodals, mixed freights, modern powerful diesels pulling these long trains over the layout. As such, mine is a dual mainline layout for the entire lower shelf. The upper shelf is more of a branch line. It runs more point to point. So when guests come over, guess where trains will be running? That's right, they'll be running on the main line in a loop, because when guests come to your layout, what are they going to want to see? They want to see trains run. And of course, all the little details associated with that is what's going to keep them interested. Now, you and I all know that our trains should run about the speeds they're running now, to stay prototypical. When you run your trains, double check to make sure they can run just a little bit faster to keep everybody interested. More what you would see at, say, a train show or a display somewhere. It just keeps the things a little bit more interesting for your guests. Also, remember, they're not really interested in seeing switching and all that sort of stuff. They're not going to understand it. So, set up your trains, make them interesting, and let them run. This is also probably not the time to try to do fancy things with your trains. So what do I mean by fancy things? Well, if you're like me, once again, back to the long trains, you want to have distributed power, and you want to have, you know, all kinds of, how many coal cars can I get in this drag today? Yeah, when guests are over, that's probably not the best thing, because if you're by yourself and you're operating and a train derails, hey, you pick it back up. You got a train room full of people trying to watch your trains go by, and they're off the tracks. Not quite as impressive. So keep your trains short, keep your locomotives on the head end, and of course, always make sure they are speed matched. Having them speed matched will make sure that they are not fighting each other as they're making their way around the layout, and of course everything will run very smooth that way. So remember, your guests most likely are not train buffs. They don't understand how the railroad operates. All they want to do is see trains go around. So set them up so that the trains go around, and always test them first. Get down into your train room at least a day or so before the guests are going to arrive, and let your trains run. Make sure that your locomotives are in good working order. Check your rolling stock, make sure all of the cars, couplers, everything is working together. I know all of us probably have trains on our layout that are bad ordered. Either the couplers don't stay coupled, the wheel sets don't stay aligned, whatever it is. Just make sure that everything is in operational order that's on your layout. Take off anything that isn't, and set it aside. Do your very best to clean up the little odds and ends that may be laying around, whether they're layout parts, scenery parts, tools, equipment, material, whatever it is. Get the layout cleaned up as much as you can. It'll present better, and it'll prevent the likelihood of something getting knocked over in a place that you don't want it knocked over. So I will be cleaning all of these items up. Wherever the scenery is, that's where it's going to be, and we'll have to deal with everything else after the new year. So we made a mention early on of some items that you definitely want to have done on your layout, as far as, you know, what guests are going to notice. Lighting's a big one. If you've got any lighting projects, if you can get those on before the layout, people will recognize that right away. They'll see the lights, and it'll look pretty. It'll look Christmassy. Everyone will be ecstatic to see lights on the layout. Things they might not notice so much are weathering projects and that sort of thing. When the trains are going by, they're not looking to see if they look prototypical. It's more of, are they running? So if you've got weathering projects and you're trying to get those done for the season, I'm going to recommend that you switch gears and go on to something that's going to add some obvious visual appearance other than to the train themselves. So maybe putting in figures that have been laying around, definitely lighting, and if there's scenery items that you can complete. Later today I'm going to be working on the maintenance road that crosses over our terminal here. That's great. Whatever helps the layout look more finished and more visually attractive to your guests are the products that you should be spending the time working on. Because once again, just like for us when we're down in the train room, it's all about seeing those trains running. So I know it's been a very tough year for a lot of people, and you may be opting not to meet with your family and friends, and I hope that's not the case. I'm looking forward to having friends and family over this year, especially this year given all of the hysteria that's for some reason taken over everything. So from everybody here in this household, and on behalf of everyone that's helped me put together the Allegheny Northern subdivision this year. I want to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas. I hope that Santa brings everybody lots of train stuff so that you can continue modeling into 2021. There's going to be 2 more videos that are coming out here between the end of December and the beginning of January. One is going to be a layout wrap-up, so everything that's been done in 2020, and that includes little details like parking lots and stuff like that that we did, and of course the branch line that's coming. I didn't get the upper shelf built just yet, so we'll go over all of that, and that will be the second video that's coming out, which will be what is coming new in 2021. So assuming that everything stays somewhat normal, then we'll be looking at the expansion for 2021 into the harbor scene, and then of course whatever other little projects pop up between now and then. So Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to everybody, and we'll catch you all again here in 2021 with all the new cool stuff.